Hi everyone, this is Optimus Robotics and we're joined today by Dr. Susanne Bieller, who is the General Secretary of the International Federation of Robotics.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a chemist from my study background. So I'm working in STEM for a long time, but I haven't really studied robotics. So I'm not really a roboticist in that sense, but I have a broad overview. So that I think sometimes it's even better in my position to not to be too much into depth of the topics, but to have a broader overview and look from a different perspective at those topics. So yeah, so I have been working for 2 years now as a general secretary of the IFR, but before that I've been in other positions at associations, so I know how these networks among companies work, and I've learned a lot about robotics from just different perspectives, so also from a more European perspective and now the global level. So I think that's a good experience I gained to work in that industry.
Thank you for sharing that background with us. So what did you struggle with most since becoming General Secretary of the International Federation of Robotics, and how did you overcome it?
That's really a good question. I think when I really started my position 2 years ago, a question I often heard, how is that as a woman in that role? Because there's so many, robotics industry is really a male-dominated industry yet. There are few women coming also in the more outward positions, but it's still mostly men. But I don't see myself as a kind of role model and woman at that role. I mean, I don't have my position because I'm a woman or despite I'm a woman, but that's just a coincidence, I would say. And I probably it's sometimes even sometimes it may be an advantage to be the woman among all the men, and sometimes it might also be a disadvantage. So it's difficult to tell, but I really worked on not being identified as the woman in that position. It's really more about the content I deliver than the gender.
Whom do you consider an inspiration in your field?
That's really a tough one. It's probably because I'm not really the roboticist, so I don't have the big researchers in mind when thinking about robotics. I really have met some really inspiring people throughout my career, and I think it was the entrepreneurial spirits that impressed me the most. So I've met people like the Rudolf Gödel, who's deceased unfortunately by now, was really inspiring for me because he was an entrepreneur. He really knew about the industry and he had some vision in mind, and he really lived for that. And he also took that for the association work, and that was something that really took me.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So we've seen robots on the International Space Station, dancing robots, soft robots, and more. Where do you think robotics will go next?
That's so from my perspective, there are two developments we should have in mind when looking at the robotics. One thing, like when you're talking about robots on the ISS and dancing robots and so on, it's a lot about what are these fancy new developments that are really inspiring to a broader audience and that really kind of showcase what we can achieve and what we can do. And if we really thoroughly work on that, we can do that and we can develop that. We can even find out more about how we as humans work when we're developing those humanoid robots, for example. So that's a very inspiring field. But on the other hand, I really also look into when is that something I can really have on my own at home, or when can that be broadly used in industry? So for me, that's always more the challenging thing is about when can I, like, take Rosie from the Jetsons? I mean, I don't know whether your generation knows that, but that's something from my childhood. It's a kind of a household robot that can do different things and can basically do the whole household chores. That would be great to have, and I really would be looking forward to having that. But on the other hand, I know it's quite unlikely still that I will have something like this universal household robot at home during my life. It's kind of, I probably have a lot of robots that can do this and that part of my household chores, but this universal thing, it's likely not happening. But we'll see in different areas, we will see these kind of universal robots. I mean, in some sense, the robots we have now, the industrial robots we have now, they are universal. You can program them for very different tasks and applications. So, and now we're seeing this collaborative robots that don't need a fence to work next to humans. So that's the next big step. And following that, we will, in some years in the future, I don't really, I cannot really predict when that will be happening, but at some point in the future, we'll see those really responsive collaboration. So the robot sees what I'm doing, can anticipate what I'm doing, and then can change its own motion to fit to my motion. That is something that I'm really looking forward to. And that will also bring the whole industry and the potential users forward. So that would be then really a collaboration between humans and robots that is similar to a collaboration between two humans. So far, you usually have a robot and you have usually to adapt your behavior to the robot, because the robot can do certain things, but it's really hard to program robots in a way that they can really know what you plan to do and then change its own behavior to your behavior. I think also that AI will bring us a vast step forward, but I also fear that we sometimes overestimate the potential of AI in the field of robotics. Sometimes it's also even hindering us. I especially see that in Europe, that people overestimate what we can achieve with AI. And with that, they kind of try to regulate robotics, and that will be at the end to the disadvantage. So we should always see in a certain relation. So yeah, as I said, I'm really looking forward to new kinds of robots, but I'm also kind of always looking at what will be feasible in a reasonable time frame. It's probably also because I'm working a lot in areas like what we call ethical, legal, and socioeconomic issues of robotics. So there are a lot of people out there that really fear robots, and because, for example, they fear that robots are taking their jobs. If you look closer at what robots can do and how they are developed and who's kind of deploying and selling those robots, you are less, you can be really less fearful about robots and any risk to your personal or even your working life. But so it's a lot about knowing more about robots, and that's why I'm also investing quite some time to really talk to people, educate them, and make them really familiar on robotics. And that's why I also like your activities, because it's really trying to break it down to the general public, make it attractive to them, make it understandable for them. Yeah, and finally also get more women and more girls and young women into the robotics area, which we really need.
Okay, thank you for sharing all of that with us. The things you said about people fearing robots and the limitations that people put on them is very interesting. Branching off of what you said, what advice do you have for young women interested in technology?
I would say really go for it. If you're interested, go for it. Don't fear any technologies. Don't listen to any of those people that would say, is that something really for you as a girl? Don't listen to them. if you're really into it, there's nothing that can be too difficult or not being suitable for you as a girl. And so I don't see why males should be so successful in that role and girls shouldn't be in the same extent. So that's something you should not. When I started chemistry, for example, people were telling me, you as a girl want to study chemistry, but isn't that a male domain? So why are you looking into that? And you just forget about those opinions and just do what you're really good at and what you're really dedicated for, and then you will succeed. And I think there's so much also women can contribute, because I'm not too much into this gender aspects, but I think sometimes women think differently and they have different approaches to solve problems, and that's really that's beneficial to our industry and to our technology. So we should really make use of that, and that's huge potential. And also for all the companies we're representing at IFR, if we just miss out half of the society, that's a lost opportunity. So please all do more into STEM subjects, go into IT. It's both the technology, it's the IT, but it's also all the social skills you have, and all that combined is really a path to success. So please go ahead, and also go ahead with your activities and get more girls into STEM subjects. That's really something that's important.
Thank you so much for all of your advice today. It was great to hear about how you got started in robotics from your background as a chemist, and then all of your experiences, how you want other young women to apply, just to keep working into the field and to not let anyone else's opinions derail that. So thanks again for coming with us and for sharing your wisdom with us.
It was a pleasure to talk to you.